Finally, after 5 days of trying with no success, there was some first-class cricket in Bristol, and Gloucestershire's Kane Williamson made up for lost time as he closed in on his second 100 in successive innings, this innings coming on the second day of the LV County Championship contest with Yorkshire. After day one's washout, play finally got underway at midday after some very heavy overnight rain. Andrew Gale won the toss and inserted. And after Chris Dent had struck an early four, Tim Bresnan squared up Benny Howell to have him held by Phil Jakes in the slips, with just the 4 runs to the batsman's name. Bresnan should soon have had his second wicket. Williamson was given a life at slip, and it was to prove to be a very expensive mistake from Gary Ballance. Conditions were ideal for bowling in, and at times Bresnan was getting the ball to talk, as the Gloucestershire batsman really struggled. Dent could also have gone to the luckless Bresnan, but somehow the slips let the ball fly between them to the boundary. Anthony McGrath had a sensational last match as Yorkshire thrashed Leicestershire. His medium paces caused problems on that occasion, and he was close to a wicket here, the appeal for leg before being answered in the negative, however. Then Williamson got himself in. He looked in stunning form in Derby last week, where he celebrated his return to the county with a match-saving 128. And he was soon reeling off the runs again on his home ground. Still only 21, the New Zealand international sometimes makes batting look very simple. Old coaching manuals expressing the need for a high elbow probably aren't used that often these days, but Williamson does look like an old-fashioned player with a very correct technique. Some of his back foot drives were right out of one of those old manuals, and those learning how to bat may want to watch these clips very closely. And, like a lot of young players these days, he can also strike a big ball. This pull went for 6. He was easily outscoring his partner Dent, and this 3, courtesy of another well-placed and well-timed shot, took him to another 50. He'd needed 84 deliveries to get there, in which he'd struck 5 fours in that 6. It was an exemplary knock once he got over the initial difficulties and that drop catch. When Gale had won the toss with plenty of moisture about and overhead conditions a dream to bowl under, he would have no doubt expected to have put Gloucestershire into some trouble. But both Williamson and Dent batted with some freedom as they took their partnership into 3 figures. Gale moved his bowlers around, but with little effect, as this pair of young batsmen really began to enjoy themselves in the gloom. There were some delicious shots along the way too. Dent had made a very slow start to his innings, but picked up the pace as he went on, and his 8th 4 took him to his excellent 50. He'd needed 123 balls to get there, by which time Williamson had already moved into the 80s. Their partnership of 146 made in 42 overs was finally brought to an end by Stephen Patterson, who had Dent legged before for a fine 62. And shortly after that the gloom became too bad to continue, and the day ended with Gloucestershire on 165 for 2. It's difficult to see where this game goes from here, although Williamson will be keen to record back-to-back hundreds. Well, 3 in a row if you add the one for his country against South Africa in Wellington. He'll resume his innings on the 3rd morning on 89.